What is up, everybody? My name is Dion, but you can call me Isby, and let's talk about last week is something that I wanted to start doing on this channel. However, I figured with not only this being the first episode, but also we are officially a quarter of the way into 2024. I mean, as of recording this anyway, it is April 1st, which means that we are officially 3 months in. And so rather than just talking about last week, I've decided that we should talk about the past 13 weeks. Everything that has happened in 2024 so far. Now, I've been keeping a list on my phone, so there's a lot of things that I definitely have that you might have forgotten about, but there's also a lot of information out there, so maybe I forgot something. Let me know in the comments about anything that I maybe have not mentioned or that I should mention next time when we do an episode like this. But with that being said, the first big story of 2024 was Epstein's list. Yeah, what seems like forever ago happened just 13 weeks ago. And it turns out that you can be so rich that when federal documents are being released about you being associated and traveling to an island that was full of trafficking, you can still pay the government to not show your name. As we saw several people requesting that the document be delayed in its release so they can scribe their name out of the document. It gave us a lot of funny Stephen Hawking memes, and that was it. All of the monsters that were on Epstein's Island didn't matter because no one's been affected by it. I haven't heard a single story about anybody on Epstein's Island that was arrested or charged with any sort of anything because no one cared. You know why? Because there were aliens in Florida. Yeah, do you guys remember, like, right after the Epstein document was released, there was this whole Miami Mall had aliens in it story, and everyone was like, almost within a week of that, we had this picture of Jada Pinkett Smith getting released, and that was the thing. Shannon Sharpe also interviewed Cat Williams, and there was a lot of shit going on with that. This guy jumped this judge, and it became memed everywhere. And speaking of jail, Gypsy Rose Blanchard was released from prison. For those who don't know, she basically was a child who had Munchausen by proxy, which basically means that Munchausen's disease is where you, as an individual, you think that you're sick, and so you actually develop symptoms that make you sick. This happens a lot of times for many people who might have OCD or, are just germaphobes in general. It also could be a pregnancy thing. Many women tend to believe that they're pregnant and then get pregnancy symptoms despite not being pregnant. Munchausen's by proxy is when somebody tells you you're sick and then you become sick. Basically, her mom thought that she had all of these terrible diseases, and then she didn't have these terrible diseases, and so she killed her mom. There's a lot more to the story than that, involving like an ex-boyfriend and the internet and all kinds of stuff, but it doesn't matter because she was released. She got convicted of second-degree murder, and she was released earlier this year, back in January or February. She was on all kinds of news interviews and talk shows, and people were following her. However, all of that came crashing to a halt just a little bit ago, as of recording this, because she's since deleted her Instagram account and made a statement basically saying that she can't live her life on the internet and that it's not real, etc., etc. She also divorced her husband, who apparently had a very quote-unquote fire D. And now, I don't know what she's doing, but she's probably fine now, maybe, who knows. Also, I do want to mention, I saw a few tweets about this, and I do have to agree. I'm not one to play the race card and be like, black people are so oppressed. However, had Gypsy Rose Blanchard been a minority, do we think that she would have had the same level of treatment as she got when she was released? And that's not on her, like, that's not me blaming her for, like, being white or whatever, but that's the media, right? She helped murder her mom, and yet she became a martyr, essentially? And I'm sorry, I just don't believe that any minority, black, white, or Asian, would have had any sort of sympathy after being released from jail. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments. And speaking of minorities, apparently there were Jew tunnels. It was revealed that in New York City, a bunch of Jewish people had secret tunnels all around the city, and lots of anti-Semites were like, ah! I don't really know what happened with that, honestly, because it was just a few headlines, and then it sort of disappeared and nobody talked about it anymore. Joseph Herbert, also known as j.cole, hosted the Golden Globes earlier this year, and that did not go well for him. He then doubled down saying that it wasn't his fault, and I'm sure that helped him all kinds of much. Speaking of award shows, I'm Just Ken won the Critics' Choice Award for Best Song, and it dropped this Ryan Gosling meme, which is great. And it made a lot of white women very upset. Speaking of white women getting upset, the Barbie movie created a whole kinds of discourse because Margot Robbie was not nominated for Best Actress, and Greta Gerwig was not nominated for Best Director during the Oscars. And it caused the whole thing of white women saying that, people didn't understand the messaging of the Barbie movie, and I made a video about it saying that those white women complaining did not understand the message of the Barbie movie, and you can watch that video in the little iCard in one of these two directions. I don't know. Or you can click the link in the description. It's there. And none of those nominations really mattered because Barbie wasn't winning any Oscars anyway because it was an hour-and-a-half long Mattel commercial and Oppenheimer ended up sweeping everything. Anyways, on a more sad note, Matt Pat retired, and that was a big deal for all of YouTube. Matthew did a final 10 for each of the 4 channels before passing on the 4 channels to new hosts, Tom, Amy, Santi, and I feel so bad. I forgot Film Theory. Lee, his name is Lee. Oh man, that's just falls right into the meme of Film Theory not mattering, doesn't it? Speaking of sad YouTuber news, Too Mad died. Now, this is very controversial. Lots of people were, somewhat excited because Too Mad was like a terrible person. Other people were still saying that it's still sad because he was a person. I'm not very familiar with the whole Too Mad situation. I know he had a lot of controversies with him. But regardless, I don't think any of that matters now because he's dead. So hopefully, he either gets his just desserts or he's in a better place or whatever you believe in. And while he's not dead, he might as well be. Wilbur Scoot, who again is a streamer, Twitch guy, I guess. I don't know. I'm not familiar with the whole streaming side of things. But he got canceled because apparently he likes to touch women when they don't want to be touched. I know there was also a big thing because, George Not Found was also involved in that situation. There was a girl, came out and was like, oh, he touched me and I didn't like it or whatever. And then it was revealed that she, completely fabricated the story because she went into a party, a 21 and up party when she was under 21. And so she was, surrounded by all these guys and they were having a tickle fight and it wasn't even sexual, and she was encouraging it, enjoying it or whatever, and then she changed her mind or whatever, and it was a whole thing of the George Not Found losing sponsorships, and it also, like I said, it all started with this Wilbur Scoot guy getting canceled for beating his girlfriend. I think it was they were into some really kinky shit, and by them I mean he, and so he wouldn't acknowledge her safe word, which is tip from Isby. You have safe words for a reason. And speaking of canceled influencers, the Angry Reactions guy, he was canceled within a matter of moments because he was involved in a domestic violence dispute, and people heard that and just ran with it. And then it turns out that he was innocent because it was 100% self-defense and he didn't do anything. But he quit the whole social media game because he was just couldn't believe how many people, immediately switched on him, losing friends, losing sponsorships, nobody giving him the benefit of the doubt. And that's really sad and has a lot to do with the way that, like I said, society just immediately believes women all the time and that it always has to be the man's fault, regardless of everything. We're seeing that, like I said, with the George Not Found situation, and we see it here with Angry Reactions, and it's just really, really upsetting that a man can't catch a break. Essentially, that's the thing, right? The man can't catch a break. So I hope that Angry Reactions is doing okay, and maybe he'll come back eventually. But if not, we respect his wishes and hope him nothing but the best for his future endeavors. On a more funny note, though, this dude was naked at Bass Bro Shop. Don't know what that was about. I think he was on drugs. Didn't look much into that story, but he was naked and jumped into the giant fish tank. Speaking of fish, the Sandy movie that was supposedly on Netflix got leaked on Twitter, and I mean the entire movie. It was supposed to be, one of the SpongeBob movies because they're doing a bunch of spin-offs. They're doing one with Squidward, and they want to just milk the franchise dry now that Steven Hillenburg is not here. And so they planned a Sandy movie, and it got completely leaked online, and then it proceeded to get ripped to shreds because apparently it was really bad. I missed out on it because by the time I got to actually look at any of it, it had all been copyright strikes. I probably could just Google it, but I don't care enough because everyone was saying how terrible it was. And speaking of SpongeBob, SpongeBob and Patrick hosted the Super Bowl, and it was awesome. If you didn't know, Nickelodeon was doing a whole thing where they had the Super Bowl broadcasted on Nickelodeon, and you could just watch it. And like I said, SpongeBob and Patrick were the hosts. They had Sandy, they had Dora, and it was hilarious. People ended up saying that was better than the actual Super Bowl. There were a lot of really funny jokes, and it was due to the fact that Tom Kenny and Bill Fingerbarker, they were able to do like a motion capture thing, and so they were actually reacting to it live. It wasn't just like some AI stuff. It was actually the SpongeBob cast being involved, so it was great. Speaking of the Super Bowl, Kansas City won. Speaking of Kansas City, Jason Kelce decided to retire. I guess he didn't want to live in the shadow of his brother. I actually don't know why. He's actually pretty old from like in terms of football standards, so he's probably just like done. But it's funnier to say that his brother's better than him. Also, Taylor Swift was there, obviously. Ice Spice was extremely confused the entire time. Usher was on roller skates with 12 different outfits. Alicia Keys was very not on key. This happened. Her came out with a guitar. There was Justin Bieber, and Ludacris was out there with an afro. Also during the Super Bowl, Rafah, a Middle Eastern city, got bombed in the middle of the Super Bowl. Also during the Super Bowl, the Senate had a super secret Senate meeting in the middle of one of America's most precious times. Yeah, that's not fishy at all. Speaking of the government doing things, Florida has apparently announced that minors will not be allowed on social media. If they have an account and they are under the age of 14, that account will be banned. Not sure how exactly that's going to work. Due to the fact that, like, what if I make my account in, Missouri? Missouri doesn't have those laws. Like, you can't ban my account on, Florida if I live in Missouri, and the internet works everywhere. But apparently that's a thing they're doing. I personally technically don't have a problem with this because if you look at any social media website, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, all of them say in very clear print, right before you sign up, it says you have to be 13 years or older to make an account. So, no, there shouldn't be any 8-year-olds on Twitter or Snapchat or anything like that because you have to be 13 to sign up. It's in their terms of service. Also, in the United States, the Baltimore Bridge down in Kent Island collapsed. That was actually very close to my hometown. So I hope that nobody I know was on that bridge. But they kind of cut off the church, really. There was a very, very large cargo ship. It simply lost power. It hit the bridge, and the bridge collapsed in moments. And a lot of people were, not a lot of people, thankfully, but a decent amount of people on the bridge, about 20 people. I think that they've rescued a few people, but there's a lot more that are still missing, and they simply just stopped searching. I guess they found it, like, not valuable or anything like that. Pretty sad in that sense of them just, like, kind of giving up, like, they drowned. You know what I mean? Like, it's kind of messed up. But the mayor came out, and I'll be honest, I did not know what the mayor looked like. But he looks like this. And that made a lot of white people very upset. Because why does the mayor look like a minority? That's literally the conversation. Instead of saying, dang, it sucks that that bridge fell down, thoughts and prayers to the people affected. No, there's a black person in office, and he looks black. Speaking of the government doing things, Alabama has introduced a law saying that women who don't use their eggs, who like freeze their eggs, and they just end up throwing them away because they don't use them. Yeah, apparently those women are going to jail. That's a thing. Which led to a lot of women saying how, well, if you freeze your eggs, then I get to claim them as dependents if you're gonna, send me to jail for child murder, right? But speaking of embryos and politics and abortion and all of that, France has added abortion as a right in their constitution, which led a lot of people to say a lot of different things. Obviously, some people very happy, some people very upset. Regardless, I don't care. I don't have a uterus. And speaking of babies, Danielle Bregoli had a baby. Yeah, Catch Me Outside Girl had a baby. A lot of people were kind of like shocked and almost upset at this. However, I even came to her defense. I made a TikTok about it because like all that stuff happened when I was in like high school. So it's been a very long time since Danielle Bergoli has been in the spotlight as like the Catch Me Outside Girl. And I feel like that again. She was a small child then, and children do stupid things, and everything nowadays is recorded because why? Who knows? But everything is recorded, and I think that a lot of us, as we were younger, did a lot of cancelable and stupid stuff that we wish we weren't recorded. And luckily for us, it wasn't recorded, but for some people, they didn't get that luxury. So I think that Danielle's probably just grown up, honestly. That could be all I can think about as she grew up. But speaking of Taylor Swift at the Super Bowl, Taylor Swift also got leaked a lot. And none of it was actually real. It was all AI. There were a lot of AI accounts where they were making AI nudes and AI pictures of celebrities, and this was going on for a very long time. And then a few bigger Twitter accounts got a hold of them, started leaking them. They weren't really leaking them, but they were just showing the naked images of fake AI celebrities, and it was a whole thing to the point where apparently the Senate got involved and was like, we need to look into this. Not due to the 14-year-old girl who had AI nudes leaked of her, and then she killed herself. That wasn't important, but Taylor Swift, that's what we needed. We needed to get an action for that. Speaking of celebrities getting leaked, though, what was a real leak and not AI was Drake's penis. As far as I'm aware, that was very real. I did not see it because I'm not into that, so I don't know why so many people were watching it and genuinely enjoying looking at his penis. You guys have many questions to answer. Other things in musical news, Nicki Minaj and Megan Thee Stallion started beefing. More rap beef started just a little bit ago between Kendrick and Drake and j.cole, and there was a whole diss track, but it was like a secret diss track, but Future was involved. There was a lot of rappers involved. Ben Shapiro also got involved in rap. That was a sentence that I wish I'd never had to say. Beyonce released a country album that had a lot of people upset because apparently black people aren't allowed to do country. It's also just not a great album. Like, everything I've heard about it is just terrible. Like, to me, it sounds like what non-country fans hear country as. That's what the Beyonce album is. Diddy was revealed to be a sex offender, and he just recently got raided by the entire FBI, and he's on the run. Meek Mill got canceled and was also gay, apparently. Not sure what happened with that, but he followed a bunch of like gay porn on Twitter, and people were very upset at that. There was also something else. I don't know if that's why he got canceled or there's something else that made him get canceled. But yeah, that was a thing. Lizzo announced that she was quitting music because she's been bullied online, despite her not only enabling it, but also her bullying her backup dancers. So, no feelings given here. And Ariana Grande released an entire album, and it was very controversial because, obviously, as we know, last year she started dating Ethan Slater, who was married with a child. And the first big drop of it was Yes and, which basically came off as her bragging about stealing this woman's husband. She also came out with this interview being like, people don't know the whole story, and it's like, there's not much to the story. He was married. He had a kid. You slept with him willingly. And that's not to say he's not in fault. Obviously, he's a piece of shit because why are you sleeping with a woman when you're married with a child? But also, Ari needed to, be a grown adult and say, hey, I'm not going to sleep with you because you're an asshole. But speaking of Ariana Grande, the Wicked trailer came out, and a lot of people aren't happy with this. Half of people aren't happy because they don't know that Wicked is a musical and they think they're just remaking The Wizard of Oz in Maleficent version, where it was like, oh, the Wicked Witch is actually a good guy, despite the fact that that's actually what, technically the musical is. But a lot of people don't know it's based off a musical, so it's a whole thing. And the people who do know that it's based off a musical are also not super happy about it because it seems like that they just don't really, it doesn't seem like a great movie, honestly. But movies that have come out, which is Godzilla vs. Kong, which is apparently very good. A lot of people are enjoying it. It seems to be just a fun, turn your brain off blockbuster, and so far I've seen nothing but positive praise about it. Surprising everyone was Winnie the Pooh Blood and Honey dropping with 100% on Rotten Tomatoes. Now, I believe that since it has dropped with 100%, it has now officially been released and has dropped to, I believe, like a 50%. But the audience score is still at like an 80, and that is the turnaround of the century. Something else of the century, which is the worst comic book movie of all time, Madam Web. Apparently the worst thing of the century. Now, I haven't seen it yet, unfortunately. It was out of theaters by the time I actually wanted to. But, yeah, apparently it's that bad. It was really bad. It was so bad, in fact, that Sony released every single other Spider-Man movie into theaters after it had bombed. And apparently Sony's, like, really mad because Dakota Johnson and Sydney Sweeney were, like, trashing on the movie, and like the entire cast and crew really didn't care about the movie at all. So it was like a whole thing, and I know that the main reason why I didn't see it is because I found out that Sydney Sweeney was only in a black leather suit for about 4 seconds, and that makes me sad, honestly. How did you fumble that bad? But speaking of Sony and Marvel, that one Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, the like mini short that they were doing about like Miles dealing with anxiety, that released just a little bit ago on YouTube. I haven't seen it yet, and I actually finally haven't heard anything about it. I just saw it on my YouTube feed. It's weird that I haven't heard anything about it though. Marvel also announced the Fantastic Four cast, which was very controversial because 2 of the picks were really good, and 2 of the picks people are very 50-50 about. I've already made a video about the fact that I don't think Pedro Pascal is a good call for Mr. Fantastic, but we'll wait to see, I guess. Speaking of superheroes just failing miserably, Invincible got completely just lost all of its momentum because they took forever. They started, I think, at the end of last year, I believe. They started season 2. After several years, they started season 2. And they had 4 episodes and decided to take a mid-season break. And I don't know whose brilliant idea that was, but yeah, nobody's talking about Invincible anymore. No one cares. Speaking of Amazon, this is a lot sadder news. Chance Perdomo, who he was a very young actor, he was only 27, and if you watch Gen V, you might recognize him. He was the male lead in there, and he passed away due to a motorcycle accident. Details are still coming out as of now. No one really knows, but it's very sad. Gen V production is 100% on pause. They were supposed to start filming in the summer, and that's just permanently paused until they can figure it out. Because as I said, he is the male lead of that show. And thoughts go out to him and his family because that's something that is 100% super accidental, and it's just sad somebody that young could pass. You know what I mean? But speaking of streaming services, Avatar: The Last Airbender was released on Netflix, the live action version, and it was very, very controversial. I myself have made several comments on it. Speaking of Netflix, Stranger Things is apparently still being made, and they're 9 months. It's going to take them 9 months to film the final season. That is longer than Superman Legacy is going to be filmed. How? Why? Who? What? Also, several of the Stranger Things cast has been canceled. This one guy got canceled because apparently he's a Zionist. Millie Bobby Brown got canceled because she's apparently a terrible person to waitresses. Spoken as somebody who's obviously never working as a waiter or waitress or in the service industry at all. The Deadpool 3 trailer came out and it looks great despite all of those leaks. Obviously, the general public doesn't know that Hugh Jackman's coming back, so it was a big shock in the trailer when he showed up for like a brief half second. And X-Men 97 was released, and apparently it's fantastic. It's as like 100%, I think, on Rotten Tomatoes. Like, it's that good. Dune Part 2 was released, and apparently that was really good. I haven't seen it because I don't care for Dune. I hadn't heard about it until last year, and then I forgot about it until a few months ago when everyone was talking about Dune 2. So apparently that's really good, though. So if that's something that you're interested to, go see it. We also got our first kind of look at Superman Legacy. It wasn't a real look, but it was a picture of the cast and James Gunn. They look super happy, super excited. Speaking of DC Comics, Suicide Squad Killed the Justice League came out, and that was also received very badly. People didn't like Kevin Conroy's send-off. People just thought it was bad because it was a live service game, and so it dropped very soon. Speaking of live service games, though, that dropped really, really soon, was Power World, which was, ironically enough, super praised. People loved it, but there was a whole controversy on whether or not they used AI, whether or not it was a Pokemon clone, like a direct ripoff of Pokemon, comparative to things like, Digimon or Yokai Watch, which are technically Pokemon clones, but they obviously are original. Power World looked to be just Pokemon with guns, and a lot of people were upset about that. It was a whole big thing. And like I said, it kind of dropped off because people kind of finished the game, and now they're just waiting for updates. King Charles has cancer. Apparently, that was a thing that was announced. Also, so does Ninja. It's just going around, I guess. Speaking of cancer, the Apple Pro Vision came out, and yep, that, just like I said, just really stupid product. You look like an idiot. Please take it off your face. Now, earlier we talked about Sandy movie getting leaked, and it was a big deal. And it was like, oh my gosh, I wonder what Nickelodeon's going to do. Well, now Nickelodeon's not going to do anything because they have been Uber canceled. Now, for years, people have been speculating about what happened behind the scenes of Nickelodeon. Between people like Amanda Bynes, Jeanette McCurdy, Alexa Nicola. Like, these women have come out and been like, hey, don't send your children to Nickelodeon. Nickelodeon is a terrible place. And that was officially announced due to this documentary called Quiet on Set, where many stars came out. We're talking about Dan Schneider, how he would, obviously be a little creepy weirdo that we all knew, obviously. But apparently it was more than that. Nickelodeon would hire sex offenders. Like, it was a big thing. Like, it's a whole, 4-part documentary. I believe there's a 5th episode about to come out. That's, even more information. The big reason why a lot of people are talking about it is because Drake Bell came out and was talking about how he was assaulted. So it was a very, very big deal. Rooster Teeth shut down earlier. That's actually really sad for those who are watching Rooster Teeth. But there was the whole fake Willy Wonka factory thing. There was the sad Oompa Loompa. It was just a whole bullshit of AI generated crap. They were portioning out jelly beans. It was really bad. It was really, really bad. And for our final story, this kind of happened more in the middle of the year. Actually, this happened last year, but it was just, the footage came out just a little bit ago, and it was a cop. So at the end of last year, in November, there was a cop, and he freaked the fuck out. They had stopped a guy. They had detained him, put him in handcuffs, put him in the back of the car. After they had put him in the cuffs, they put him in the back of the car, and I'm just going to show you the footage.
Shots fired! Shots fired! Shots fired! Shots fired! You know. I'm hit! What? I'm not! In the car! I was shot through the car! Oh!
Now, some of you may be wondering, what the fuck just happened? Well, an acorn landed on the cop's car. I'm going to repeat that, just so you can... An acorn landed... Who gave Chicken Little a gun? So that footage was just released a few months ago, earlier this year. And I'm not sure what happened, but I really hope that guy fired. But knowing the American police system, I doubt he did. Anyways, with that being said, I hope that you guys enjoyed the first episode of Let's Talk About Last Week, where we actually talked about the last 13 weeks. Let me know if there was anything I missed, and I will try to talk about it in the next episode of this, where I kind of do a larger recap. But make sure you subscribe so next week I can talk about things that happened this week. And as always, my name is Dion, but you can call me Isby, and I'm out.